On the edge of a quiet bay, where the salty breeze carried the cries of seagulls and the scent of the ocean, there lay a small fishing village. Life here was simple, bound to the rhythm of the tides, the rising sun heralding the day's work and the returning boats painting the dusk with sails and laughter. Among the weather-beaten cottages and winding sandy paths lived a young fisherman named Elias. He was neither the strongest nor the richest in the village, yet his name was known by all, spoken with respect for his generosity, his honesty, and the warm, unshakable smile that rarely left his face. Elias had inherited a modest boat from his late father, learning the art of fishing through long, patient hours at sea. But what truly set him apart was not his skill with nets or his keen eye for reading the waves. It was the way he cared for people. If an elderly neighbor's roof leaked, Elias would climb up to fix it without asking for payment. If a boy's father was away at sea, Elias would teach him to tie knots and mend nets so he could help his family. Even on the stormiest mornings, when others grumbled about the weather, Elias could be heard whistling softly, as if to remind everyone that life always had something worth cherishing. Though his days were long and often exhausting, Elias never measured his worth in the size of his catch. For him, the true richness of life was found in the bonds between people, the shared meals, the helping hands, and the trust built over years. This belief, deeply rooted in his heart, would one day be tested and illuminated by a strange discovery on the shore. It was on a misty morning after a restless storm that Elias went to repair his boat. The night's waves had flung seaweed, driftwood, and shells across the shore, and as he knelt to check the hull for cracks, something caught his eye, a faint glimmer peeking from a mound of wet sand. Setting aside his tools, he stepped closer to find an old lantern, half buried. Time had dulled its metal frame, but the beauty of its craftsmanship remained, with intricate patterns of waves curling into stars as if the sea and sky had been captured in metal. Lifting it, Elias was surprised by its lightness, and a faint scent of salt and old oil rose from within. At its base, nearly hidden under corrosion, was an inscription. Light in the darkness. Tracing the letters with his thumb, he felt a strange weight in his chest, as though the object carried a meaning he could not yet name. So he took it to old Marin, the village elder, whose eyes seemed to hold the memory of countless tides. Marin studied the lantern in silence before saying, "This lantern's light is not meant to guide your steps across the shore or sea. Its true light, Elias, lies in the hope and kindness you bring to others. Remember that, and you will know its purpose." The words settled deep within Elias, and in the days that followed, they echoed in his mind each morning as he prepared his nets. He began with small acts, slipping extra fish into a widow's basket, teaching a young boy to cast again after losing his catch, lighting the lantern in the village square and telling children stories of far-off lands and the mysteries of the deep sea. Weeks turned into months as he repaired nets for the poor, carried water to the elderly, and listened to the troubles of fishermen returning empty-handed. The lantern became his quiet companion, hanging from his boat's mast or swaying by his door, and villagers began to say it was as if the light followed him, even in the darkest moments. Then one winter, the sky turned a bruised gray for days, the sea restless under the weight of gathering winds, until on the fourth night the storm arrived with full fury. Waves crashed against the shore, rain lashed the cottages, and the wind howled like a living thing. While securing his boat, Elias heard the faint cry of a child. Without hesitation, he lit the lantern, the golden glow cutting through the storm like a promise, and pushed into the night. He found the child clinging to a fence post, soaked and pale, wrapped her in his coat, and carried her to her mother before moving on to help others trapped in their homes. Hour after hour he worked, the lantern lighting his way through sheets of rain, its glow a sign that help was near. By dawn, the storm had eased, leaving the village battered but alive. Exhausted, Elias stood on the pier as the sun broke the clouds, and the villagers whispered about the fishermen who had braved the night guided only by an old lantern. For them, it had not just lit the night, it had lit their hope. Years passed, and that winter storm became a story told to every child in the village. Elias grew older, his hair silver like the foam cresting the waves, his hands trembling with age. Yet his spirit remained steady and the lantern still hung by his door. He spent more time in the square, telling stories to children under its soft glow, offering advice and comfort to neighbors. The lantern's light casting warmth over every face. One evening, as the sun painted the horizon gold and crimson, Elias sat by the shore thinking of all the days he had carried the lantern, not to light his own path, but to light the hearts of others. When his time came, he was at home, surrounded by those he loved, the lantern flickering beside him. With a gentle smile, he whispered, "Its light was never mine, it belongs to all who share it," and closed his eyes in peace. In the nights that followed, the villagers lit the lantern not only to remember Elias, but to remind themselves that every act of love, kindness, and hope adds to a light that will never fade.